Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Figure It Out cast for November 2021. I am your host, Adam Koralik, and I've also got the evil Rob Thanos with me. You guys continue to keep him unlocked as the horse armor that he is. Welcome back, Rob.
I don't even know who you are.
Yeah, that's because you drink too much. But when we were down,
I don't drink enough.
You know, we were down in Dallas, and he got hammered. Actually, no, he was fine. We had a good time, and we'll talk about that a little bit in a moment. But I just want to say again, if you're not aware, this is a Patreon-backed podcast. So if you are a Patreon backer, you get early access to it as well as my other videos. You support the channel. You can have shout-outs. You can have subjects. You can even be on the podcast, and of course, you keep Horse Armor here on the show as a collective tier. So thank you very much. If you guys could please like, comment, and subscribe. Check us all out on the social media stuff in the description. And I guess I'm kind of announcing it here, although I've put it in other videos. I'm now launching a travel channel, completely separate from this. That will be in the description as well. It's literally adventures of flying and eating stuff, because I'm constantly flying for random things anyway. So we might as well film the adventure. And then show foods and things like that. You know, for people who are into kind of travel vlogs, I guess you might want to think of it. But if you're into that at all, I'll put a link in the description. Now, typically, this is where we would introduce Abdullah. Unfortunately, last-minute emergency. His mother had to go to the hospital. It's not our place to talk details. She's supposed to be fine, as we were told. So we wish them well. We wish him well. And we hope to see Abdullah back very soon. So, Abdullah, man, just hope it all works out for you. We miss you more than I would gladly trade you for Rob, like in a second, like no problem.
I would trade you for Abdullah too,
and so that's the one thing we agree on, is that we would trade the other as currency for Abdullah. But seriously, Abdullah, we wish you the best. But the next up is actually, we are joined by another guest, which is Joseph Tamburino. What up, dude? I'm sorry we kind of kept you in the quiet there for so long.
Hey, no, it's fine. And things are going pretty well, so can't really complain too much.
How was your Halloween? You do anything fun, or?
No, I did not.
Boo. You didn't play any of the horror games that we discussed last month?
No, I kind of got sucked into the black hole that is Stellaris for the entire month. So, oops. I meant to actually get back to RE2, but that didn't happen.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that.
That was a very interesting comment thread from last month. It's like people in the comments were like, "How do you not like RE2?" And then there were a bunch of people that totally agreed with you. It was very funny to see.
Hey man, healthy gaming discussions are not a bad thing. Let's get started with our first subject. So, Joseph, you have the option, of course, to come up with a subject. You didn't exactly have one for us, right? So, we thought we would pick something on your behalf. Are you still cool with that?
Yep.
So, anyway, we go down to Dallas, Texas for a very special reason. We decided to go pay a very long overdue visit to the National Videogame Museum in Frisco, Texas. Which is the only strictly video game museum in the entire country, possibly in the entire world. I don't know. It was founded by Sean Kelly, John Hardy, and my boss at Digital Press, Joe Santulli. And it is an amazing exhibit of items of significance in games, consoles through video game history. The reason that we went there is, obviously we wanted to see the museum, but Adam wanted to do a video, kind of continue his ongoing series about system prototypes, with the Nintendo PlayStation and the Sega Pluto, the most recent video that he did with Ben Heck and the system's owner. So we knew that
shout out to Roger.
Museum was in possession of the only known prototype / mock-up of the Sega Neptune, which is... actually, Joseph, do you know what the Sega Neptune is?
Yes, that's the supposed combined 32X and Genesis one, right?
Absolutely. So it was shown in kind of trade magazines. I think it might have been at like E3 or CES. They might have showed it off kind of behind glass. But it was in video game magazines back in the day, kind of as a preview. It was a consoleized 32X Genesis combo. And and the Video Game Museum has the only one that's known to exist. It is not a functional system like the Pluto, but it does it does have a custom shell and everything. It's a full mock-up, controller ports, video and power ports. It even has the you can't remove it, but it has the expansion bay where you'd plug in a Sega CD into it. So yeah, they have the only known one at the museum, and we wanted to go down and have, I would say, a family reunion of Sega prototypes, because Adam is currently in possession of one of only 2 Sega Pluto prototypes that are functional and working and known to exist. So we thought, hey, maybe we should go down and see if we could have like a little family reunion. You want to take it from there, Adam? Or?
Well, yeah, I mean that's basically that's basically it, but it's a little out of order. So that's not how it started. You wanted to go check out the museum to check it out, and we were going to do that. But yeah, we wanted to check out the prototypes and all that. And then I thought, yeah, if we're going, why don't we do this little family reunion of sorts. So I actually asked some people at Sega to see if that had ever happened, and they were like, yeah, no, that's never happened. They were built on totally different time cycles and everything, so they would have never been in the same room together. So then I was like, oh, that's crazy. So I messaged my buddy Roger, who is the actual owner of the Sega Pluto prototype, and I this is how that Roger is cool, because I was like, dude, this is gonna sound messed up, but I want to come out there to you in California, pick the Pluto up, take it home, babysit it, then take it down to a museum in Texas so that it can meet its long-lost brother. And I figured he'd be like, yeah, dude, that's my retirement plan. There's no way. Instead, he was just like, yeah, that's fine. Like, he didn't really care. He said to his credit, he was like, I've been handling prototypes. He knows me. We worked on those videos together, all that. So he was like, if it was anybody else, I probably would say no. But in your case, yeah, I know you'll take care of it. So, so that's basically what happened. And then we were planning to take it down there. And then what happened, Rob?
So I actually reached out to my boss, Joe Santulli at Digital Press. I'm like, hey, I'm gonna go visit your museum, and I told him of our intention to bring the Pluto, and we thought it might maybe grease the wheels a little bit to let us view the Neptune, because it's a museum. These things are behind glass, saved for posterity, things like that. So you don't really get to handle these things one-on-one or kind of see them privately, as it were. So we're like, hey, we've got the Sega Pluto. Maybe the museum would like to take some pictures of it or see it firsthand. This kind of cool lost Sega system. And Joe goes, oh, yeah, we already have one. And we're like, what? And apparently the museum also has, in addition to the Neptune, they also have a mock-up of the Sega Pluto. So technically there's 3 of them, but only 2 are actual units. The one in Texas is literally just a piece of plastic with what feels like bricks on the inside.
Oh my god,
very, very
it was
heavy.
so heavy.
But it's gray plastic as opposed to the black painted plastic that your Pluto...
Roger's Pluto.
Pluto you currently have is. So yeah, then it just ended up as I mentioned before, like a family reunion. So we're like, yeah, let's get all 3 of these Sega platforms, these lost Sega consoles in one room, and kind of talk about them. And thankfully, John Hardy, who is the director of the museum down in Frisco, Texas, one of the founders, he was so incredibly gracious enough to let us examine the Neptune and the Pluto privately with the with our Pluto and take pictures, and he learned a lot about the systems. We learned a lot about the systems just by being in there, and it was honestly one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had as a gaming historian, a collector, video gamer. Period. What do you think, Adam?
No, I completely agree, and it was kind of cool because you could tell at that moment John had no idea there was a functional Pluto out there. Because when he saw ours, I'm using the term ours when really it's Rogers. I want that to be very clear. But when he saw that one, he just was like, "Oh, that's cool. They made a black one too." I'm like, "No, this one works." And I like pressed the eject button. It like blew his mind that it went up and there was a disc. And I'm like, "No, this, it reads disc. It turns on." He's like, "That one works." And then I'm showing him the back that it has the modem and the hard drive. And he's like, "There was a hard drive in it?" Because the one they have is literally just like a big chunk of, well, it is plastic, but it feels like concrete. It's ridiculously heavy. How heavy that one was. But it was just kind of this really cool thing that. A museum curator, we got to blow his mind with something, and he was cool enough to show us all that stuff, and we got to be, I don't know if you actually held them, Rob, but I held the two Plutos at the same time, making me maybe the only person since they were built to do that. I remember taking a video, which, I mean, you'll see kind of spoilers for our Patreon backers, but it did do a video, a very short kind of I've already edited it together, by the way.
Profile of the systems kind of backstage.
I've already, by the time this is public, those videos are already out, but for Patreon backers and just for you guys, those videos are already edited as well. We're going to be, as far as I know, the only people who have ever made hands-on videos of the Neptune ever. And as far as I know, again, in fact, I know for sure the only people who have ever put all three of those things in the same room at the same time. That has never happened.
Yeah.
So, how many people will care, I don't know. But, like, it is ultimately, I thought, just like one of those super nerd moments that is one of those things that if you ever, like, wonder what drove me through my life, it's things like that. Just, like, making stuff happen that only like 8 people will care about, but you do it for history's purposes. Like, we had an opportunity, as dorky as it sounds, to bring prototypes together. Now, most people wouldn't really care about that, but to somebody who does, that's crazy. And so we actually went forward with it and did our best to make the world see that, and just to get it more coverage, because as awesome as the museum is, it really needs more exposure, I feel. Like, the fact that they have the Neptune, it's on display for anyone to go see at any time for a meager $12 ticket, and yet nobody knows it's even possible, says something. And it says that it's criminally underviewed. And so if you guys want to see the Neptune or their Pluto prototype, you can. And if you want to see Rogers, I've got good news for you. It's going to be doing a bit of a convention tour. At the time this releases, it's about to go to a show in Kansas City and another show in Sacramento. And I can't speak too soon of the other ones, but there are plans for 2022 that are both domestic and even potentially international. So we will talk later if that becomes a reality.
Hell, I mean, we took it while we were down in Texas. We took it to a local game store and blew the minds of the staff working there. It's like, I mean, this is absolutely like a grassroots kind of tour, the coming out party of the Sega Pluto, as it were. So people are going to be able to get the chance to see it in person, because it is such a cool piece of video game history, and it's the only one that's touring right now. The other one is locked in a vault, and we do not know if it's ever going to see the light of day. So, absolutely take advantage.
Yeah, we tried to do a little research. I don't know if you remember this conversation, but we tried to do a little research into who actually bought it, and we couldn't get that information. Unlike the Nintendo PlayStation, we know exactly where it ended up. It's in the hands of Greg McLemore. He lives in Los Angeles. He's the guy who created Pets.com. But apparently the buyer of the other Sega Pluto prototype was very, very reserved. So we don't really know. I'm sorry, Joseph. You've said like 4 words, and I feel terrible about this. Say something. Okay. Talk about it.
Joseph, where do you live, actually? I'm
in Virginia.
Okay, listen. I know it's a hike, but I know you're a gamer. You're obviously a collector and a enthusiast of gaming history, since you support Adam's channel. If you ever get the chance to go to Dallas, all I can say is I can not recommend the museum enough. You will absolutely have an incredible time. I mean, we skipped saying that there's like a stadium events and a NWC NES cart there. It's like they have so much.
There's
stuff
footage
there,
of all of this on my channel. There's an entire video. We had an entire tour, and we only found one flaw in the entire place. Do you remember what it was?
I don't. Wasn't it like a something like misstated about it, something regarding the Dreamcast?
No, it's that they didn't have anything about the Casio Loopy. Not one.
Right.
Not one thing. Nothing.
The next time me and Adam go to Japan, we're
coming back with like loopies.
We're coming back with a loopy for the
a
museum.
loopy prototype. Loopy prototype. Got to make it happen.
Hey, good luck finding that.
Oh, I'll make it happen.
I think the loopy is its own prototype. They just looked at it, they're like, yeah, that's good enough.
That's good enough. We're done. Okay. We were just trying to make a printer,
sense.
sir.
Although I do find it funny that I'm finding out that there's a video game museum in Texas immediately after basically ensuring that work wouldn't make me have to move to Texas.
Oh.
Well, it's funny because when I applied for the job at Digital Press, Joe Santulli, when he was interviewing me, and I told him that I loved his work with the museum and I work as a video game history teacher, he's like, oh man, I should hire you as a director at the museum. I'm like, don't tease me like that. because it's like, I've never had any urge whatsoever to move to Texas. I'm very happy where I am. But, yeah, that would be an incredible opportunity to work for that museum.
I mean, honestly, that would have been like the one silver lining if I did end up having to move to Texas for work. So I'm so glad I don't need to. But I might need to have to actually find an excuse to go visit.
Dallas is fun.
Flights are cheap, and the food is really good in Texas too.
Yeah,
like we ate like kings while we were there.
You'll see that on the Travel Channel. I assure you.
Yes.
But it is funny though. While we were wandering around the museum, you I don't know if you remember, Rob, but you actually brought that up about the job, and you said like, "Dude, I'm kind of regretting saying no to that." So,
I know.
So it is funny.
It was great. The staff there was awesome, and the location was great. They were talking about expanding, and they'd like to do a library or something along those lines, where because they have a number of complete sets as part of the museum's collection, to like let people be able to come there and see games firsthand and play them on original hardware, on original cartridges, things like that. I think, if the museum does continue to be successful, I mean, it was very crowded when we went there, all things considered, but I think the public there and kids know that it's there, but I think collectors and video gamers in general need to really pay some attention to that place, because it is fantastic.
I agree, but that's probably enough on that. But let's move on, I think, to our next subject. Joseph, even though you didn't pick it, thank you for that subject. That was an awesome one. You did a really good job there.
You're welcome.
So our next subject is selected by another backer who is actually the guy who runs the Missouri Game Con. His name is Chuck Shaw. This was his subject that I think Joseph should probably take a little bit of point on if you're up for it, because I think we didn't let you speak much in the previous one.
Okay. What's the topic?
All right, so here we go. He says, Nintendo is famous for its well-known characters like Mario, Donkey Kong, and Samus. What would you say are some of the top 5 Sega characters from the Genesis era? What are some of those Sega characters that you feel deserve a bigger following? Are you enough of a Genesis guy that you could even approach this?
In theory, yes, but honestly, I'm drawing quite a bit of a blank. Like, I had a Genesis as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
When I got back into game collecting, Genesis was what I started doing. But honestly, most of what I remember from Sega stuff is mostly that was specifically Sega stuff was Sonic. A lot of the stuff I remember playing wasn't a Sega specific character. It was I remember playing the Aladdin game. I mean, there was the Lion King game, but that's not Sega. And then there's other stuff I remember a game called eSwap, but that's not really a Sega character type thing either. It was just a game on the Genesis.
Right. And so that, I think what Chuck's basically getting at, and that's the entire problem. I've said this in the past in videos. For every major character that Mario or that Nintendo had success with, like a Mario, Sega responded with something like a Sonic. But the only difference was that Nintendo's characters always broke out of that, glass ceiling, and everybody in pop culture knew who they were. Hence, Donkey Kong, Samus, and, Link, and so on and so forth are all basically household names. But Sonic was really the only character Sega ever made that work with. So the obvious first answer to that question is Sonic. But as I said, they did actually make those games, and they have great characters, but they're basically not known outside of Sega circles. So some of the ones I would throw out there, yes, you mentioned Aladdin and Lion King. Aladdin's interesting because that game itself was actually developed by Sega, even though it wasn't, it was a Disney game. But, the characters I would throw out there, the first one that always comes to my mind is actually Rystar. Rystar.
Yeah, as soon as I said I wasn't remembering things, that came to mind too. I'm like, oh yeah, that's a thing that exists.
Right. So the interesting thing,
I didn't play that as a kid, so it's not
totally
really,
understandable.
Watching my brain.
Yeah, Rystar was an interesting case for anybody who doesn't know anything about the character. Sega had a tradition back then that they were not married to their mascots. They were just kind of jumping from one to the next. In fact, the previous mascot, it was actually on this list, which is Alex Kidd, was mostly their Sega Master System mascot. Sonic was simply the next one, and then they were supposed to replace him with Rystar, but Sonic was far too popular to do that with, where Rystar just kind of fell to the wayside, and to this day has really only had the 2 games that originally came out, one on the Genesis and one on the Game Gear. But I would argue, since literally Rystar was the last time that Sega attempted to create a new mascot specifically to become their dominant mascot, that's an interesting case. Like, you kind of, that's like a video in of itself as a story, because, Sega is now synonymous with Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, I'm sure everybody just thinks one and then the other. But technically they tried to replace him with Rystar. I just find that kind of interesting. Other characters they would throw out is the main character from Gunstar Heroes. But that one's a little bit of a mixed bag, because while the game is phenomenal and that franchise is mostly associated with Sega stuff, having both the Genesis, a Game Gear version, and even I believe a Sega somewhat produced Game Boy Advance version, technically it was a treasure game, and it even had a sequel or a spin-off, I should say, spiritual successor potentially, I don't remember exactly, on the PS1. So I don't know if that necessarily counts. Comic Zone, probably one that I think a lot of people would think of.
His name is Sketch Turner, Adam.
Yeah, fine, Sketch Turner for the game Comic Zone, but I appreciate you with the tag right there. Vector Man. Vector Man has not seen
Vector
games.
Man,
yeah, since.
Oh yeah, Vector Man.
Vector Man was cool. Shinobi.
Shinobi.
Yeah, Shinobi actually got some love there on the PS2. I don't think, have we seen a Shinobi game since then? I know there was Nightshade.
There's one on 3DS actually.
Okay, I don't remember that, but I believe you.
Was that a port of the Genesis one, or is there?
I think it's its own game actually.
Huh.
Okay. Sure, even Sega fans, we don't really know. Toe Jam and Earl. The interesting thing about
so are you just doing this all by yourself, Adam, or are you?
Fine. The hell with you. Go ahead. Take over. I was just reading.
I was going to say Toe Jam and Earl, which aren't a Sega franchise, but
that was exactly what I was going to say.
2 games are on the Genesis.
Wasn't the third game also published by Sega?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Was on a Sega console, but yes, absolutely.
That's not entirely true. There is a leaked version of Toe Jam and Earl 3 for the Dreamcast.
No.
It does exist.
I haven't heard it.
I'm serious. I have it. Like, it exists.
Huh. That I did not know.
Now you do. It's probably
the
the
other big one I
Good
would
job
recommend is Earthworm Jim, which was a multi-plat. It was on the Genesis and it was on the Super Nintendo, but I would absolutely, and I think most people would really associate that with the Genesis.
Yeah, the tone of that does fit Sega in the Genesis era more than anything from Nintendo, for sure.
Yeah. And then the other one, I would definitely recommend, kind of picture is Axel and Blaze from Streets of Rage.
Yeah, definitely that.
Those are, there's there's other ones like Altered Beast and Golden Axe, which are obviously on there. But what I would kind of lump into kind of one big thing is Sega's relationship with Disney back then. With their Mickey Mouse game, Castle of Illusion, Quackshot, and Mickey Mania. There was a lot of really great license. Lion King, Aladdin. Those games are great on the Genesis. There were so many great Disney licensed games that were... I mean, I remember for a long time, Castle of Illusion was like the best-selling game on the Genesis, I think, until Sonic came out. And I think even Aladdin might be in the top 3 best-selling Genesis games ever. So it's like these were the reasons to get a Genesis back in the day. You know, there were Aladdin games and Lion King games and Mickey Mouse games on the Super Nintendo, but I feel they were just so much more at home on the Genesis.
So that's an interesting take, because I was trying to ignore ones like Earthworm Jim and the Disney ones, because they aren't really Sega characters, even if you associate them with it.
They don't really fit for the topic, even if the games on there were.
Yeah. But one character that does, and hot take, actually probably not that hot of a take, because I've never really met anybody that actually did like this game. But it's so iconically associated with the Genesis, and this franchise somehow endured for like 20 years. Echo the Dolphin.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah, right? I don't get it. Like, I've played them as a kid, and I like everybody, really couldn't get past the beginning of it. You'd try. It was on the Genesis. There was a sequel on the Genesis. There was the Sega CD
There was two sequels on the Genesis. Yeah. Echo Jr. on the Genesis.
Yeah. There was the Sega.
There were ports to the Sega CD.
Sega CD. Yep. There were Game Gear versions. Sega Pico versions. There were even there was the Dreamcast game. There was also technically the unreleased Dreamcast game, and there was even a PlayStation 2 version of that. I don't think it ever came back beyond that point, though.
Was it on the Master System?
There might have been
a Game Gear version.
That's a good. There probably was, but not in the U.S. I would bet Europe probably saw a Master System version. Yeah. I don't know.
Or Brazil.
Yeah.
What I look at Echo the Dolphin as is a game that so many people have nostalgia for, because I feel like everybody that had a Genesis played this game back in the day, but nobody actually likes. They think they like it, but they really don't.
Yeah, I agree, and I'm assuming, because I don't remember this exactly, but I'm assuming that game was successful largely on its visuals in the day, because it was so pretty for the time. And that's really what sold it, because the only time I ever really remember extensively playing that as a kid was a friend of mine had bought it, and he was super like into it, and he brought it over, and he's like, you just gotta try this. This is the best Sega Genesis game ever. And like, even despite his claim, neither of us could get past the first level. It was like we were just excited because it looked nice, but you just realize very quickly you can't really do anything. And it is strange, because I would argue, even though I don't like Echo, it's hard to say it's not potentially one of the top 5 most iconic characters of that console.
Yeah.
You might want to give some sort of honorary mentions to, I don't even know the name of the characters, but the ones from that like Last Crusade game, the one that's really expensive, the Atlas one.
Oh, Crusaders of Sentia.
Yeah, that's it. The really expensive Genesis like answer to Zelda. Musha,
Fantasy
essentially.
Star games.
Oh yeah,
but I mean that's
there is that.
There's different characters in each one.
The funny thing is, the Fantasy Star games are more associated, I would say, with the Master System than they are with.
But I mean, there's
3 and
how many of them?
They shouldn't be, because I think there was only one on the Master System.
I think
the other 3 were on the Genesis.
Phantasy Star 2 was on the Genesis. I remember 3 and 4. I don't remember 2. You could be right. It was never my franchise. I mean,
not mine either.
I always thought they were more of a Master System thing, but I could definitely be misremembering. Again, not my franchise. But that said, the first
Phantasy Star 2, 3, and 4 are on the Genesis.
Okay, great. Okay, that's interesting. But I don't know. Maybe it's because I just never saw those as a kid. I don't know, but
you're not an RPG.
Yeah, exactly. So like, you're really talking to the wrong guy on that one. One game that is very much associated with the Genesis, but it's very much now kind of buried away and forgotten. intentionally so, is Michael Jackson's Moonwalker. But you can't really use that. The other thing is, a lot of the, as we said before, a lot of the great games on the Genesis that people tend to remember are the multi-plat IP characters. So like Ninja Turtles games. Hey, you could even argue like that McDonald's game I'm always talking about. Those are phenomenal video games. But the problem with a lot of them is they're not actually Sega IPs. Sega was a weird company at the time. It's like the only character they made in-house that they could actually market was Sonic. They would often develop games, and then those games would be successful, but they weren't their own IPs, or they had the better versions of, split IPs like Mortal Kombat, for example, or as you guys pointed out, Earthworm Jim, etc. But when they mostly tried to develop their own IPs and release them themselves, most of the time it fell flat. And like really the examples we've given you are some of the better known ones, like Streets of Rage. I actually would argue Streets of Rage was probably the most well known of the Sega Genesis, Sega wholly owned IPs from that console, other than Sonic.
The thing I always kind of go back to when I'm comparing the Genesis to the Super Nintendo is actually something you said. I think it was in your Genesis console recap video, that kids on the playground or adults now, they're like, when they're having their little console war, Genesis versus Super Nintendo, and the Super Nintendo fans drop Mega Man and Final Fantasy and Metroid and Mario and Zelda and Kirby and all of these incredible Nintendo franchises that are in Smash Brothers, are so ubiquitous in Nintendo's history and in the gaming culture. And the Genesis kids is like, oh, we just have Sonic. I think what you said incredibly eloquently in your video was the best games on the Genesis are the ones that you've never heard of. It's your Rocket Knight Adventures, it's your Gunstar Heroes, it's your Rise Stars, it's your shoot 'em ups like Musha, or Truxton. There's so many great experiences on the Genesis, but they just went about it very, very differently. I almost look at the Genesis kind of like how Xbox or even like Sony at times operates. Like they don't have like a lot of like mascots. For Xbox you've got like Master Chief and Marcus Phoenix, from Gears of War. But it's like there are a lot of great games. You just have to dig a little bit deeper. But when you do find those games, it's far more rewarding if you're looking for hidden gems on the Genesis as opposed to the Super Nintendo, because the Super Nintendo library has been picked through and combed over, hundreds of times by people, gamers, YouTubers, influencers, collectors, whatever. The Genesis, it's kind of the gift that keeps on giving. I feel like every year I discover something new on the Genesis when I pick up a game, and I'm like, wow, this game is fucking great. That's what I really like about the system.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much just described Sega in general. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Joseph.
I mean, I was basically going to say the same thing, but I think one of the things that's like when you think of Nintendo, and you could always think of their characters, and when you do Sega, it's like Sonic and other Sonic characters might have something to do with like Nintendo being a toy company before they did video games, and Sega basically coming into existence as an arcade/amusement game company. So both of the companies basically focus on different things, and the one time they came up with a character that we remember that was marketable, which was Sonic, they were explicitly doing that to fight Mario, as a counter to Mario.
Yeah, I think you just made an excellent point about the Genesis and the arcade. The Genesis felt like really an extension of Sega's arcade games. And a lot of what, you would consider to be maybe hidden gems, some of the best kept secrets on the Genesis, are shoot 'em ups. They're, fighting games or beat 'em ups. They're not platformers with mascots. And I think that's the difference. It's like there's a lot of high score games. There's a lot of arcade ports. Stuff like Forgotten Worlds or something like that. It's like, weird shit that you wouldn't really discover elsewhere than the arcade or the Genesis if you kind of looked hard enough. And that, to your point, it's like absolutely, the Genesis felt like an arcade, like an extension of that. And Nintendo kind of felt like Disney. Nintendo's Disney with all of their big franchises.
Yeah, I mean, again, just to add to that point, I mean, you kind of proved it, but they created Sonic obviously on purpose to compete with Mario, but as I said earlier, they literally tried to replace him mid-console cycle, not recognizing the vast power of that character, hence Rystar. So yeah, they just approached it very differently, and they seem to be about, let's just make good games, regardless of how it goes about happening, meaning like who owns the IP, whatever. I'm sure they would have loved to have created other characters that had that kind of financial breakout success, and it's kind of
obviously,
but it's kind of biting them now because everything has to be about Sonic if they want to do anything and be noticed, really. And again, this question is very limited to just the Genesis. I mean, if we were going to talk like Sega characters in general, you can jump into a lot of the Dreamcast stuff, which was very notable. I mean, I would say there's a lot of those types of characters that exist on the Saturn. That's actually the most interesting thing about Sega versus Nintendo. I mean, you can go back to the NES and basically name like the same like 5 characters, and they've, for the most part, had games on like every single iteration of Nintendo hardware. But Sega, on the other hand, basically creates entirely new IPs like every single console generation, which is why they have this wide swath of characters. It's just you have to ask a certain generation, who do you associate with Sega? And they'll have like 5 totally different answers than a generation of kids that grew up with a different Sega console. The one exception typically is Sonic, but even in Sonic's case, he got his origins in the Genesis. He did not get his origins in the Master System. He was just kind of thrust on there later, retroactively. He never had a game on like the SG-1000 or SC-3000. He didn't have a game on the 32X. I mean, Knuckles Chaotix, sure, but that's not his game. He didn't have a real game on the Saturn even. Like, technically, yes, he's on it, but he didn't really have a true game.
I mean, they tried.
They tried.
Sonic Extreme,
which never existed. Yeah.
Happen.
So it's kind of interesting. If you look at like the wide array of Sega consoles, I would argue that Sonic only really had games on the Genesis, a single game on the Sega CD, and the Dreamcast. I mean, you can kind of make an argument for Game Gear, but then you have to, at least the Game Gear ones were marketably relevant when they came out, whereas the Master System ones, at least in North America, were totally irrelevant because it was the last game that ever came out here, and it was so comically limited that it's one of the rarest games on the console. But at least the North American version. So you'd have to speak to someone in Europe to get more of an answer about the Sonic on the Master System, but I think that kind of makes a case, doesn't it? That Sonic was only relevant when they wanted him to be, whereas a lot of their other characters, they're like, let's try new things. Knights, Burning Rangers, Panzer Dragoon, all that sort of stuff. Like every generation of Sega hardware has like totally different mascots, even though they probably in hindsight shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, probably not. I mean, on the other hand, from what I understand, Sega's still doing pretty well nowadays, especially in Japan. So
yeah, they're doing fine.
Maybe they didn't need to do what Nintendo did and come up with so many marketable characters, though it would have helped them for sure. But whereas they don't need to do. And then again, now they're a third-party developer, so
that's what I was going to say. It depends on your goals. Like, yes, Sega financially is doing fine, but they don't make consoles anymore. In a different universe where maybe they had more than just a Sonic, maybe a bunch of their characters had blown up to the same type of level and we just kept seeing repeats of them, maybe we would have sacrificed creativity in order to get, more Sega hardware. And that in of itself is, I think, an interesting discussion. Would you have wanted that? Like, Rob, how would you feel like if they were like, okay, rather than give you all these independent franchises that we keep creating new ones, sacrifice all that, and that way, you know, every generation definitely has a Sonic game, and let's just pretend for argument's sake that Rystar was a big hit and Shinobi was a really big hit, and you know, Streets of Rage was a really big hit, and those were just your consistent heavy hitters that every generation you just saw, like those same four or five major IPs. Would that have been better? Or would sacrifice?
I don't think it would have been better, but necessarily better. But I also don't think it would have necessarily had any influence on Sega's issues, which caused them to exit the console market.
Oh, yeah, that's a seperate discussion. You're talking 32X and all that stuff. I'm just saying, let's just argue for argument's sake. Let's just say they ran their business more smoothly. Let's just say they followed the Nintendo model of they were really committed to their hardware, and they very rarely released a dud like a Virtual Boy. You know, you kind of get one, maybe a Wii U, you get one every 20 years type of thing. But in the case of Sega, let's pretend they didn't do that. They just picked a street, they went with it, and they followed exactly the Nintendo model. They just released like 5, you know, super characters that got games repeatedly. Would you have preferred that potential timeline where they're still around, but they're doing it that way, and you have to sacrifice, you know, your Crazy Taxis, your Shenmues, your Yakuzas, all those things? They don't exist anymore. They never made.
No, I wouldn't change a thing, because I think the really, I don't want to say successful video game companies, because, you know, Sega really only had one truly successful system in America, but I would say the video game companies with longevity don't chase trends, and they don't copy other companies. You know, Sega is notable because it is different than Nintendo. They took a different path, and they did something, you know, that fit the consoles that they did better than just pumping out Sonic 7, Sonic 8, Sonic 9, you know, into the Dreamcast and into the Saturn. It's, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. And, like, every once in a while there are trends they are traced, whether it's, you know, Battle Royale or remember the term Halo Killer? You remember Sony was searching for fucking years for their Halo Killer. You know what? And then they just decided, you know what? We're just not going to do a fucking Halo Killer, Killzone, Resistance, fuck all that. We're just going to make a different game, and it's going to be our own thing. And that's when they come out with Uncharted, or that's when they come out with God of War, or something like that. It's, you know, it's...
Or when they publish Demon's Souls.
Yeah, exactly. It's, you know, let video game consoles kind of plot their own course, stand on their own merits, and I like variety. You know, I wouldn't want, you know, you get kind of weird things like Crusaders of Senti, as you mentioned before, being a clone of Zelda, or, you know, Rocket Knight kind of being like Mega Man or something like that. You know, like, you are going to get some crossover between companies and consoles like that. But it's like, I appreciate Sega more for just like the weird shit, the different stuff that I can't get on Nintendo consoles. Or if I am going to get a game like Mortal Kombat, or Earthworm Jim, or Aladdin, or, you know, these games that were multiplats, or Madden Football, and, you know, anything like that, I'd rather play it on the Genesis, because I feel that it resonates better with that system. And it's like, just do, you know, don't copy, like, you know, plot your own course.
No, I agree with you. I was just curious what everybody would have thought of that. So it's kind of cool that we're all on the same page. I mean, Joseph, I'm assuming you're on that page.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, I mean, I would not want to trade for that other timeline where Sega basically tried to copy Nintendo's, like, playbook exactly. Since, I mean, yeah, I haven't played any of the Yakuza games, or honestly, a lot of Sega's more recent output besides, like, Atlas stuff and the Sonics, but I'm glad all that other stuff exists, and B, unless if this somehow magically makes the PS1 fail, it wouldn't have even helped. So we would just be in a timeline where Sega is still not a console maker, and we don't have any of that other stuff.
Yeah, that's another separate discussion, like what you could have done to make Sega still a console manufacturer, but that's a different subject potentially for another time. So if there's nothing else on this particular subject, then I think it's time to move on. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Same here.
All right. Well, Joseph, it has been great having you as always, and we look forward to hopefully having you back next month. And now, if you guys don't mind, I'm going to do a quick round of shout-outs here. The following people are all Patreon backers that get a shout-out at that tier. We have Jonathan Barrett, who's actually new. We've got Julian Espinoza, Leafy Poo, which is, of course, Rob's archenemy, Luis Bonilla, Loke, Michael Kelly, and Trey Wagner. Once again, that is Jonathan Barrett, Julian Espinoza, Leafy Poo, Luis Bonilla, Loke, Michael Kelly, and Trey Wagner. Thank you all so much for your patronage, and hopefully those of you listening out there, one day you will join and get on that list. Joseph is no longer with us, but...
what happened to him? Jesus Christ.
He got converted into Keith. Keith, you have come out. Joseph has become Keith. How's it going?
It worked. I can't believe it. What a miracle. I cannot believe that transfiguration ray that I came up with worked. Oh, well, guys, I'm here, and I'm excited to be here. That's all I can say.
You're like the weirdest Decepticon. You have you turn from Joseph to Keith. Okay.
Hey, man, it's in the name, man. Decepticon. I can't believe no one even thought of it.
But it would be better if it was if your name was Connor or something.
Oh my God, that would be great.
Which, incidentally, that's not the next subject, but the subject after is from Connor Wright, which would have been so much better. Oh well. Okay. All right.
We don't plan it out.
I'm gonna die. All right. Let's get all serious here. Keith, so you got as someone who's on the show, you get to pick a subject, and the subject you wanted to talk about, this was oddly thematic for the month, if you're an American anyway, or maybe Canadian too. I know they do this just at a different time. Things in the gaming world that we are thankful for.
Yes. Yeah, Keith, why don't you kick it off and let us know what you were thinking.
Yeah, so being at the time of the year that it is, I thought we should all dwell on what we're thankful for from maybe the video game industry, or what video games that might have given you in your life in particular is what I was thinking about. So for me, I am most thankful for basically Player 2. I am very, very, very thankful for the very old staple of having a second player, and even adapting onto that multiplayer in the future. And co-op has always been the most fun part of video games for me. Always some of my most favorite video games involve some aspect of second player or co-op. So I am so thankful that the video game industry has been able to put that into home consoles, and I've had all those memories of the N64, the NES, all the things in my childhood, and all the things in my present, actually, with the current online gaming. I just really enjoy the concept of Player 2. You know?
That's so heartwarming.
I know,
man.
It's
an oddly real answer.
I'm just in a very thankful mood.
So who's your favorite Player 2? You know, who's the person that you love playing with?
My Player 2, who everyone knows, your Player 2 is a love-hate relationship, is my brother, Jared. My brother Jared is he's older than me by about a year and a half, so we grew together very close in our lives because we did a lot of major things together. We did a lot of stuff together. We were kind of lumped together in activities. So let's just say that we got a lot of consoles for joint birthdays, and so the consoles were both ours, family consoles. So I played a lot with my brother, and he cheated and wormed his way into victories for all of his life. And I was happy to be his Player 2 until I finally took over the mantle as Player 1 with my friends. So, yeah.
So you were Player 2, so you got the shitty, Mad Cats.
Oh, yes. Oh, you called it, man. Mad Cats on the dot. It was always a Mad Cats controller. I have no idea why, but Mom always found the shittiest Mad Cats controller to give as the second Player 1. And she's like, well, it comes with a controller? Yeah, Mom, that's one controller. Please, can I just get the same one as Jared? He never lets me even touch it. I mean, I didn't even touch a Sega Genesis controller probably for a year after having one. A real Sega Genesis controller. So he was one of those brothers that, in a co-op game would be the best partner ever, but in a competitive game would be the worst ever person to go against. It's that love-hate relationship. I like it.
So you're thankful for the concept of Player 2, but definitely not thankful to the nightmare fuel that was Mad Catz.
No, not at all. Or any of the other third-party controllers I ended up with. I can't even think of the other brands. I ended up with some really janky ones, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, I think we all went through that pain. At least you weren't that kid where the controller wasn't even plugged in and you just thought you were playing, so that's good.
Yeah, my brother tried to pull that on me, but luckily I was old enough for it didn't work on me.
Yeah, you were like 24 at the time, and you're like, I'm pretty sure
He's
that...
more like the kind of person who would pull out the second-player controller in the middle of something to try to get the lead or something.
Those guys, they're the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Rob, what about you?
So, I'm actually thankful for, in terms of retro games, which is kind of always a focus for your channel and everything, I'm honestly thankful for the time that we're living in as retro gamers. Because honestly, I think this is, to be a retro game enthusiast, collector, gamer, whatever you have, right now is the best time to have ever been one. In terms of accessibility, having HDMI solutions for ways to play these games on modern televisions, or something as crazy as like ODEs or flash carts that allow you to own every single game and play it. New accessories, new controllers for systems as weird as like the TurboGrafx being made. Clone consoles, like love them or hate them, are an incredible way to get into retro gaming and have a nice variety and build your collection and kind of dip your toe in without a significant and financial investment. New games being released, homebrews, Dreamcast games getting released every single year. I just bought a new Neo Geo CD game. I'm like, that's fucking great. Stuff for the Atari Jaguar is being released. New Famicom and Super Famicom and Genesis games. It's like, it's really the best time to have gotten into this hobby. After the fact, since these consoles ended, but also you have the benefit of hindsight. And being able to look back on these things, hopefully, objectively. I always say, make love, not console war. That's my motto. But, but being able to look back and say, wow, I love the Sega Genesis. What's this TurboGrafx thing? So let me check this thing out. Or, even emulation, emulation's gotten a lot better for systems that for a long time have been impossible to emulate. Like the Jaguar or the N64 or the the Saturn or stuff like that. So I just think right now is the best time to be a retro gamer, even compared to like 10 years ago when I really started getting into it. I feel like right now is the best it's ever been. And, working in a game store and seeing young kids come in because they saw Scott the Woz or something on YouTube talking about a game they thought was funny and they want to play it, so they want to get an NES or they want to get an N64 and experience that. That's awesome. Like, it's a new level of accessibility for people. Acceptability for people. It's no longer weird to like video games. You're no longer a nerd or a loser if you play video games. It's mainstream now. It's like it loses some of that charm, that niche kind of cult following that maybe some people pine for, thinking back on the good old days when you can get Earthbound for $50 instead of $300. But I just think it's just such a great time to get into the hobby and to be exposed to a lot of this stuff. Love it or hate, love them or hate them, like bootleg cartridges or reproduction discs or something like that for something like the Sega CD. This shit didn't exist like years ago. And so even like you could even discount like the price point being expensive, yes, in which it is. Like if you're going to do it right, or if you're going to go all out, it's going to be a very expensive hobby. But there are still cheaper ways to do it, whether it's through clone consoles or reproduction games or cartridges or using EverDrives or even emulation. Emulation is such a dirty word in the collector market, but it is still an excellent way of being able to play games, because game preservation isn't just hoarding games, it's being able to play them, and emulation allows the vast majority of people to do so. So that's about it. I'll get off my soapbox, but yeah.
So
the world sucks, but it's a pretty good time to be a gamer.
So you didn't mention it, but to throw this out there, even the new one got a re-release this year.
The new one got a new game, for Christ's sake.
It wasn't a new game, it was a reprint, but it did happen. However, I have to poke a giant hole in every single thing you said in just one sentence.
That's me. Love it.
Yeah, no, it pretty much destroys his entire case. Of all the things you mentioned, you know what didn't get any sort of reproduction love or any sort of flash cart? The Loopy. Yeah. And if the museum comes down from that, so does your entire argument. I'm just saying.
Listen, you can't recreate heaven on Earth. You can't recreate.
You can try, damn it.
The Loopy
you can
was
try.
Just a wonderful, magical moment in time that can never be replicated. Could you imagine if there was a Franklin the Turtle game on the Loopy? Oh my God.
I don't think the world could have handled it. Actually, you know what? With that little composite receiver adapter that exists for the Loopy, you could actually do that. You could run a Loopy, or you could run a Franklin episode through the Loopy and print stickers of Franklin. I'm just saying.
You got to make that happen, man.
I'll see what I can do.
There's a chance.
There is a chance.
So you're telling me there's a chance?
I mean, it would work. It would just be
Rob,
pointless, but...
you brought up something really interesting to me, which is what kind of kicked off my retro gaming, was actually finding a random clone console in a Walmart.
Yeah.
I saw it's the worst one. It's the worst thing in the world. It's the at games.
Yeah.
The at games.
Those are garbage.
Only because my Sega Genesis was broken and wasn't working anymore, but I still had all my cartridges. I was like, wait a minute, this plays the cartridges? I got cartridges at home. And as soon as I did that, I needed to clean the cartridges, and I typed in cleaning retro cartridges online on YouTube, and down the well I went, man. And I'm sitting pretty now.
As I don't want to say professional, video gamers, I don't want to be on that high horse, but it's we tend to look down on stuff like the Retrons or the at games or any clone consoles or emulation. It's those are dirty words, especially on Adam's channel because he has such high standards. But
if it's not Loopy, it's worthless.
But they're excellent ways for people to gain accessibility to retro gaming. They really are. It's my first system that really kickstarted my collecting was the Retron 3. I went to a game store and I'm like, I want to play some of these old video game cartridges that I had as a kid. And I'm like, well, I can get a Sega Genesis for $20 and I get a Super Nintendo for $50 and an NES for $40. Which one oh, what the fuck is this thing? The Retron 3? I can play all three of them? What? It's yeah, that's what I'm going to get. And it's later down the line, I got the actual systems, because I got really into the history and the technology and everything. But it's still an incredible way. It's I know, Adam, you got shit for fucking years over that... over the HDMI to the SCART to HDMI.
I was actually going to bring exactly that up because that's exactly how I would relate to it. It's everyone has an entry level thing that gets them into it, and then there's some sort of cult of douchebags who give you shit about it endlessly forever when you're like, sorry, I was having fun. I guess I'm not allowed to do that.
I'm sorry, man. I will praise the at games one until I die. I don't care. That
So,
sparked everything for me, and
Is it perfect?
I believe
no,
it.
But it's
No, like
it's
I
good,
would
it's
never
fine,
want
yeah?
the at games one. I would never recommend it, but I'm not going to take away. I can't tell Keith, no, you can't have fun with that. You're
You
not
did
allowed.
it wrong.
You
gotta
did it
start
wrong.
over.
You have to start over, and everything you said is invalid. Plus, we have
As
to
I
have
share
you
my Model 2
castrated.
with a Sega CD attachment and everything like that, I was like, yeah, screw that. I'm happy with where I ended up, boys.
Yeah. So my answer for this question is going to be a little bit different because, I mean, Rob, you could have gone this way, but I guess you didn't. Because of video games, I actually have like a trajectory in life and a career path. And what I mean by that is, it can definitely be sad if someone says like my life is video games, which it's not, because most people would say, if that's the case, that all they do is play video games, when that's not what happened to me. I ended up having, I made a YouTube channel where I get to talk about video games. I get to show video game things. I get to produce content about it. I get, eventually that was, monetizable. You're making a living talking about your passion and your hobby, which is kind of an amazing thing, where it expands out and you build up some sort of following, and you get to be invited to things. You get flown around to places. You get to see the world because of video games. You know what I mean? Like, so that I'm going to always be eternally, grateful to video games for that reason, which is they gave me a very direct drive and course for my life, as well as a job. And that's always going to mean something, obviously, to me. But I mean, just from an entertainment standpoint, of course, it's the love of that comes from the original core of just the great times I had experiencing those adventures and those stories and whatnot that you would have played on various game consoles growing up, and then eventually getting into your older years and still loving and enjoying those experiences. Living out, fantasies and all that sort of stuff that you never normally would be able to do. While certainly you never really can, because the nature of video games is that they're genuinely horrifying. I think we talked about this on a podcast once. Like, if you ever had to be transplanted to the world of any video game, what would you pick? And I think my answer was absolutely none, because every single video game universe is a horrible nightmare you would never actually really want to live in. But you can get small, bits of that, whether it's like, you're never going to be a pilot, but you can play like Flight Simulator. You're never going to be an F1 race car driver, but you can play Forza. You're never going to be like an ultimate, badass warrior who shoots aliens, but you can play Halo. You know what I'm saying?
I was going to say you could play Franklin.
You're never going to be the GOAT, but you can pretend to be the GOAT. but anyway, you can do all of those things in a video game universe, and as long as you can suspend your disbelief in certain measures, like whether it be things like the graphics, which is the common argument, or even to the purists like us, where you're like, hey, I need to do it on the best hardware with the best output and blah 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 blah. If you can suspend all those type of things and be like Keith and use a piece of shit and still have a good time, that's all that matters. And they gave you those experiences, and that is something to always be thankful for. And I imagine every single person listening, all 12 of you, probably agree with that, that video games did something for you. But on a very personal note, like I said, they gave me a career and a trajectory in life. I mean, who knows if you two hadn't worked out, maybe I'd be like working at a grocery store. I have no idea, but it is nice that we got to have all that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to talk like butterfly effect and just kind of get in a time machine, like going back to to your childhood and like this oft repeated story that you mentioned, that like the first like video game system you ever owned, your mom pulling out a dusty 2600 out of a cardboard box and thinking it's like, yeah, that was my first video game system, and everything that followed that, the Genesis or collecting or YouTubing and traveling the world and meeting your girlfriend and everything because of that Atari 2600 that your mom pulled out of the closet.
I know, and it's kind of hard to think about the alternate universe where she pulled that out, and I was like, well, this sucks, and I never played it again. And it's like, who knows? Maybe I'd be in the NFL. Like, my career life is totally different. I'm like, I grew up loving Hand Egg or whatever, which is very unlikely, but who knows? You know, everyone has... There's some moment that everybody has in their life at some point, but you have no idea what that moment is until way, way, way later, that ultimately determined how your life played out. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think for me that was that moment, the moment that my mom gave me an Atari 2600 and was like, "Yeah, this they're all the same." Because I've said in the past, I think that the result of that was I knew that was not correct, that they weren't, but I still had fun with it. But it also gave me this, I always described it as kind of a rubber band effect, because my mom was not the strictest person when she was alive, but she did have, like, she kind of attempted to in those first few formative years. So, like, all my cousins had video game consoles, my friends had video game consoles, but she, for some reason, believed that was going to be bad. Like, that, you know, I was going to turn out to be like Beavis and Butthead or something. I don't know. So that was why that was kind of her holdover, was like, I'll give him that, and then he'll get bored with it, and the fad will go away. But the rubber band effect was that I was like, no, I just want more of these, because I want to have what other people have, but then I need to one-up them. So I'm not going to be the kid who's just the weird kid with the Atari 2600. I got to be the kid who also has the Genesis and also has the Super Nintendo. And then eventually it's like, okay, now I need to make sure I get, you know, the PS1 relatively early, and so on and so forth. But I also wasn't the purging type. You know, I kept everything. Like, I still have every single one of the consoles I just listed, and it wasn't like I rebought them. I have the same ones. I can go in the other room right now and grab that Atari 2600 my mom gave me that started this whole thing. And I'm up to whatever, like 200 plus random consoles. That includes duplicates, of course, but it all stemmed from that moment. Whereas, who knows, maybe if she had given me, you know, like a Sega Genesis, like, right away, I would have been like, oh, let's play Madden or whatever, and I would have been like, you know what, video games suck, and, like, I would have just never played it again. You just don't know.
Or you wouldn't have had developed an appreciation for the games that came before it. You know,
or
maybe
the concept
that
of
early introduction to Atari, which was relevant long before you were born. You know,
it was relevant and
gave you
done.
The appreciation for gaming history.
Yeah, I mean, by the time I had a Genesis, I mean, the Jaguar had already basically been discontinued. Like, it was pretty much in the end right there. So, you know, because I think I got it in, like, Christmas of '93. So, like, it was pretty late. And I don't remember exactly off the top of my head when the Jaguar launched. I think it was '93, but I'm pretty sure it was, like, earlier in '93. But I just don't remember offhand. But my point is, yeah, I mean, like, that gave me a cultural understanding of Atari, who they were and all that. And then a curiosity about what came before, and so on and so forth. And hey, man, if I can have this old game console, couldn't I have other ones? Because it seems like, you know, I think that was another part of it too, was when I was a kid, my uncle would take me to, there's a thing in Chicago that happens once a year called the Kane County Toy Show. And you can guess what's there. But back then, a lot of the dealers would actually sell video games in the 90s, like, for, you know, NES stuff, Master System stuff, Genesis. It's mostly Genesis and SNES, but especially, like, Atari 2600 stuff was utterly worthless. And when I say worthless, I mean, like, we can't give this away. I come with a suitcase full of them. Every single game's 25 cents and nobody buys it. Like, we're talking just trash. But as a kid, you know, even if I had $10 in my pocket, whatever, I could go to this toy show with him, and I could pick up, like, you know, 10 Atari 2600 games for like $1 sometimes. And so it gave you this appreciation for collecting this stuff while enjoying the value and then getting gameplay out of it. But I could only do that because I had been saddled with an Atari 2600. So that's what I had to go and try to collect for. Whereas, you know, I don't think that... I mean, that's how actually I got my Master System. I don't know if I ever told that story on a video, but I bought it for, like, as a kid, for like $20 in the box at the Kane County Toy Show. literally because I had never seen it, never heard of it. It was just a guy trying to get rid of it, $20, whole thing, and he was just explaining to me it's like an original Nintendo but like Sega's. It just blew my mind, and I only loved it because I understood you could go backwards. Whereas I think if I had grown up having the most relevant thing when that first happened, like if she had gotten me, again, it was 93. Let's just say for argument's sake, 93. Then you know what else was out? The 3DO. Let's just say, for argument's sake, my mom was like, I'm going to get him this cutting-edge new video game system. I'm going to get him the 3DO. And I just, like, utterly hated it. Like, this is cutting-edge tech. This is all discs. Everything's, slow. The games aren't that good for the most part. I'm sure I wouldn't have ended up with a handful of really good ones. And it's like, well, I guess I hate video games. Because I had this weird thing that nobody liked. You know, maybe that's how it would have turned out.
Yeah, I definitely see that, man. That's a heck of a thing, you know. Would I have gone left or would I have gone right?
Right. Welcome,
awesome, man.
Welcome to the deep dives, everybody.
Yeah.
But yes. So basically, we're all in agreement that obviously we are thankful. There are elements of gaming that we're all thankful for, and hopefully you guys are as well out there. If you could tell us yours, we always appreciate hearing stuff like that. Comment more. We're very unique as a YouTube channel. Because we actually read and respond to you.
every single comment, so we read through. No joke.
To the point...
I actually read through all the comments myself. I let Rob do all the commenting back and whatnot. But I read through all of them as well, yes.
Yeah, and I heart almost every single one. It's very rare when I don't see a comment that appears on the channel.
So guys, Adam hearts you. He hearts you so much.
Exactly. Well, you know who else I heart is the next person, and I hope he's alive, because he keeps paying us, but he's never around. So our last subject tonight comes from Connor Wright, who is in the UK, and he has been a backer for quite some time, and I think he's only ever responded to the question once of, like, what you want your subject to be, and we just hope he's alive. I mean, I assume he is.
Maybe it's just his credit card just auto-renewing.
It's been auto... Actually, you know what's... I know that's not true, because he vanished for a couple months. But it was a weird vanish. Like he pays in pounds, right? So I think he's paying, like, with the conversion fee, I think it's like £23, which is enough to cover this. And he randomly dropped it to like £21, which was just enough to not cover it, which would still be like $28, which is $2 under. Anyway, and then he manually changed it back. So he still logs into his Patreon. He just doesn't respond to us when we ask him what he wants.
Connor, give us a shout in the comments. Let us know you're okay. Blink twice if you're being held against your will.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so we decided to pick a subject on your behalf, and we just let Keith do it because he had a pretty good idea. So Keith, take it away.
Oh, yes, ladies and gentlemen. We've all talked about what we're thankful and the nice parts about Thanksgiving, but what about the darkness, the blackness of Black Friday? Yeah, so we're going to be talking about kind of some stories we got going on with Black Friday. I worked a few Black Friday. Rob has got a few stories himself. And kind of just want to discuss kind of Black Friday in general and let you kind of know our experiences on how we dealt with it in general. It's kind of what I was going with. So, yeah. So, first off, I worked at Circuit City for about 3 years. You guys have probably heard this before. And so I dealt with about 3 or 4 Black Fridays, or so. And I'll tell you one thing, man. They were always so much like going into battle, like an army. The managers would line you up there in lines, and they would go back and forth like Patton, back and forth, going, all right, this is really important, folks. We got to make sure to do this. We got to make sure to do that. Oh, they were setting the tone. I mean, I know it was a bit scary, but for some reason, I kind of got jacked up during Black Fridays, folks. I really, really started to enjoy the heck out of them. So, about the time they started to open the doors, that's when the people started lining up. It's about when everything always started to hit the freaking fan. The shit hit the fan every time the doors were about to open. We were always prepared for like a month straight. And then when the doors were about to open, something happened. I have no idea. And one day I found out. One time I found out. We had Game Boy Advances on sale for $50. At the time, it was a really, really good deal. And unfortunately, we didn't leave them out for people to just grab. We kind of had them locked up. So when somebody asked me to go get one, I opened the lock. And then I got surrounded. And didn't see daylight for 5 hours. It was a scary, yet exhilarating, and amazing all at the same time. And that was one of my Black Fridays.
So, similar to Keith, most of my Black Friday experiences were in-store as an employee. It was very rare that I actually had Black Friday off. I worked for 7 years at Toys R Us in the video game department. A number of those years I was actually the supervisor of the department. And that was always like Omaha Beach, man, on D-Day, as you said.
Oh yeah, that's just how it is, man.
It's like, and it's like the video game department, the electronics department was always like the heaviest hit, because you think like new games coming out like in November, new consoles coming out. Yeah, and I don't really care for much modern South Park, but a recent South Park episode that I absolutely fucking adore, just because I think
they hit it on the nail. They really hit it on the nail.
It was the Black Friday trilogy with the Xbox One and the PS4, like Game of Thrones thing. It's really like that, or at least it feels like that.
You kind of wish it didn't. You kind of wish that, you know, the news reports never really happened. And you're like, oh, that doesn't really happen here, or it doesn't happen all over the place. It's like, no, that's kind of how it is.
Yeah, I have so many stories. Like I could do an entire podcast just telling like my horror stories, but like I'm going to tell you one that's really fun. That was really funny. So it was in 2006, and it was 2006, 2007. It was the year that the Wii came out, and it was the first like Black Friday where the Wii was available.
Oh yeah,
and I remember I'm sure you guys remember that. Like, despite how prevalent they are now, you can walk into any store and get a Wii. You could not get a Wii for like the first 2 years of its existence, at least. It was sold out everywhere. Everybody wanted this damn system.
Our shipments were one Sunday a month.
Yeah,
and that's the good times.
Yeah, it felt worse than the PS5 Series X thing. It's like, you know, it was being scalped, or they just weren't out there. So on Black Friday, we advertised in the Toys R Us circular that we were going to get Wii's in. And
oh god,
the line was massive. And, you know, it would make sense to do like some ticket system, like, oh, okay, who's here for the Wii? Who's here for Tickle Me Elmo? We've only got these many, so we're going to give you some bracelets or wristbands or, you know, tickets or something so you could you know, get it. No, they didn't do anything. They flung those doors open and just like let the horde in, like fucking Dawn of the Dead. And I remember there was this guy, he was like first online, and I remember actually filming this. I had my like shitty little flip phone camera, and I was filming it because I'm like, I loved seeing just like the wave of people just pour in, to the store. And this one guy like broke away from the crowd, and this dude was full sprint down the aisle, like towards the video game department. And I'm like, whoa, this is pretty like epic, right? Like somehow another like person gets like next to him or whatever. The crowd catches up to him, and he gets body checked, like leaves the ground, like in the air, body checked into a giant display of like Barbies or like Hot Wheels or something like that.
So like Jingle All the Way.
What?
That's like a scene straight out of Jingle All the Way.
It really
That's what I was thinking about.
It's like, and I swear there was like a mushroom cloud just like formed over this thing, and like we're behind like the wall in the R zone. That's what they called the video game section in Toys R Us back in the day. We're behind the wall of the R zone, and we're just laughing our asses off, at just this fucking ridiculous guy. And like 5 minutes later, he like somehow makes it into the R zone. He's like limping. He's got like blood. I just like picture him like having blood coming out of the corner of his mouth and shit. Torn clothes, and kind of like limps in. And he says like can I please have a Wii? And by that point we had sold out because we only had like 10 or 12. So this dude just lets out the most like horrific strain of profanity and curses that you could possibly imagine. He's like, motherfucking piece of shit, I fucking thought and he had to get escorted out by fucking security. And I was actually ordered by my fucking manager, who saw me video the thing, to delete it because he didn't want it ending up online or on fucking Newgrounds or YouTube or something like that. Yeah. Oh my god, it's like that sticks with me. Just that poor fucking bastard. Yeah, who just
I'll tell you guys, man.
Who just ate tile. You know, like trying to get to buy a fucking Wii.
Oh man, I can just imagine the person just hitting the person with perfect form, you know, grab them and they remember to rap, you know, they hit him with the proper form that, you know, dad taught him to hit with, you know. I can just imagine.
It wasn't a tackle. It just guy got shoulder checked, and I swear to God,
okay.
It was like a body check, and he fucking went into the fucking air. It was amazing.
Oh yeah,
he was at full sprint when he got checked, and he just went sideways all of a sudden.
Oh my God,
it was so great. It was so great,
man. I was actually working Circuit City the same exact Black Friday. We had a Wii bundle on
a Black Friday bundle.
Black Friday bundle for everybody. And unfortunately, we were not sent very many. We got 5 Wiis.
Yeah.
But we got about, I don't know, 200 of the accessories and games, though, that went with the bundle. So, of course, we did not do any type of voucher system or anything like that. So the manager was like, no, just tell him to go to customer service. It's like, oh, just tell him to go to customer service? Like, yeah, okay. Now, customer service is a hard left from the opening of the doors. So basically, what I did, I put a big old sign right in the front that says "Wii's this way" with an arrow. And so what happens is, as soon as they opened the door, the little it was actually kind of a kid, probably the age of 12, little chubby little kid, and I'm pretty sure that's what he was going for. And he was running as fast as he could, got around there, and went all the way around. Took a hard left, ran straight to the thing. He had great form. He was running great, no problems, and he accidentally slipped.
Oh.
So I guess it was like maybe wet or something like that, or his feet were wet because it was a bit rainy outside. He slipped, and he fell on his butt and went flying through and landed inside the manager's office. I don't know what the kid said. I wish to God I knew what the kid said after that, but like I remember him like crying and his like mom and stuff like that. But I do remember the kid got a Wii.
Yeah.
And dang straight, man, that kid got a Wii. But I just remember that like he took. I can't really describe. Wish it was funnier. As funny as like you could describe it. I only remember him. It happened so fast that I can't really describe it too well. But he just fell on his butt and he just kept going forward. Like a bowling ball. It was crazy. And because the manager's office is straight right behind customer service, and he just went right past the opening where the counter is and right into the office. It was amazing. It was like the kid got called in to the principal's office and had to go. I don't know, man. But that was actually one of my funnier stories for Black Friday. That's for sure. But I definitely remember waiting in line. And the only time I actually waited in line is pretty pathetic. I actually waited in line on Black Friday for an Xbox 360 Kinect. Because GameStop was advertising them as really, really cheap. And this was also the year that the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4 came out. But I didn't have enough money for them at the time. I could have gotten them. I was in line. And so it was hilarious. So the guy walks up, it's like, okay, I want a PS5. Next guy comes up, oh yeah, I want an Xbox One. I come up, yeah, I want an Xbox 360 Kinect, please. And the guy it threw him off really badly. But yes, I waited in line for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at GameStop for a 360 Kinect because it was cheap enough for me to buy. Yeah, it's a little degrading, but I really liked playing Mass Effect 3 with the Kinect. I can't help it.
That was actually the only game I ever used the Kinect for, was Mass Effect 3, actually.
Dude,
so
I love shouting
respect.
ED. I love shouting ED decoy. ED decoy! ED decoy! Yeah. Damn you, woman! I just love shouting stuff. I love saying the dialogue. I mean, for me, that sold me on the Kinect alone. So, I mean, everyone enjoys their own things their own way, and that's the crazy thing I enjoy. The Xbox 360 Kinect.
Well, I'm sorry I don't have any really good Black Friday stories, because every year I didn't work retail on Black Friday ever, except at best technically once when I was in high school, but I worked in a grocery store at the time. All I remember was like this one lady buying like an entire cart of bananas and it kind of annoying my coworker, but that really wasn't like anything dramatic. And as a customer, I guess I'm unique because every year I see this footage of people like mobs and I see everything you guys are describing, but every year I've ever wanted to buy something on, Black Friday, I just went into the store and bought it, and it was totally uneventful. I don't know if you guys are just lunatics in the rest of the country or what the deal is, but
I'm sorry, we don't live in some magical fantasy land.
I've never had to deal with any of that.
You were spared Black Friday. You were spared the trauma. It's okay. You're like the person that missed out on Vietnam. It's good. You don't see like shoppers in the trees. You don't have flashbacks, so that's good. That's good to have, man. I'm just kidding, man. That doesn't make any sense.
No, it actually made perfect sense. Like, you guys both clearly are traumatized by it. I'm fine.
Well, I can't help it. I mean, it was definitely an experience in my life I never, ever want to freaking repeat.
I guess this podcast will be released publicly, like, the weekend of Thanksgiving. But, yeah, I am working at Digital Press this Black Friday, so if you're in the New Jersey, New York City area, come say hi and don't destroy anything, or I'll get very mad at you.
November 26th is the release date.
26th?
I'll double check.
So that's on Black Friday.
Oh, is it? I didn't even notice. Yeah, I made up the schedule today, and so this will actually come out on Black Friday.
Oh, it's beautiful.
That was an accident. I was not expecting that. I literally was working on the schedule for the next 2 months today.
Regardless, don't be an asshole on Black Friday. Take your sales, respect the employees. Better yet, do it from home. All the shit's online now anyway.
Yeah. Also, you got to remember that some of the employees, like me, when I worked at Circuit City, had to work like 12-hour shifts that day. It was rough, man. We woke up at like 4, got off at like 4 p.m. It was rough, man.
You're not lying.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, exactly. Just don't be a dick. That's just a typical rule of life. So I guess that'll about do it here. Keith, of course, thank you very much for joining us. Connor, even though I don't know if you're really alive, but I hope you are, thank you for the subject you didn't pick. Big shout-outs, of course, to Jonathan Barrett, Julian Espinoza, Leafy Poo, Luis Bodina, Loke, Michael Kelly, Trey Wagner, as well as Chuck Shaw and Joseph for joining us earlier. And big shout-out, of course, to Abdullah. We hope everything goes well with your mom. And I hear that that's expected. So hopefully everything's good with you and yours. Rob, I guess thank you. You're okay sometimes.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening. Please follow us on all the social media stuff in the description: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, whatever. And like, comment, subscribe on this video, and actually leave comments. Like I said, we actually will interact with you. Which is, I would think, is kind of nice. Unless we just suck that bad, Rob. Maybe that's the case.
Yeah. It's possible. It's probably Keith's fault, honestly.
Nah, I'm pretty awesome.
Yeah, no, it's true. Keith is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't be him. I mean, if you think about it, it all kind of went downhill after Chip left. So that says a lot. Right? In all seriousness, thank you everybody for listening, and have a good one.